This next episode, Man Up,
dials down the controversy in comparison to Painbow and Horn Sweet Horn, although, like Painbow, it does introduce a new villain. There really isn't anything else really that notable about the background of this episode, so, yeah.
So we opened the episode with the narrator actually doing something other than stating the obvious for once.
Granted, we can see that it's the Renaissance Fair, it says so right on the sign, but he's explaining what that really means until
Buttercup cuts him off to talk about how lame it is.
So we're getting the basic essence of the internal conflict in this episode from this opening dialogue here. Buttercup has a bad attitude and needs to chill the fuck out. One would presume that by the end of the episode, she's going to learn to chill the fuck out.
Blossom then runs into the stand of one Chillaxy, who apparently teaches meditation. I do like Buttercup turning the pamphlet into an origami swan and then blasting it. It's a more subtle display of anger than what was expected.
Oh, trust me, we'll get more robust forms of anger in a minute.
After we set up what the girls are doing later on, the villain shows up with a giant axe-wielding robot made of wood.
His name is Manboy. His facial hair has biceps. Okay, so here's what we learned about Manboy right from the get-go. First of all, we learned that he has, and I quote, the power of a man in the body of the boy. So, I guess super strength. He can also regrow his facial hair instantly at will. And he also has some sort of sentient control over it a little bit, although that's not really shown that much. We also learned that he values masculinity above all else. So we know this villain's motivations already, which is good.
He challenges those in the fair to fight him, and Buttercup steps up. He mocks Buttercup, which gets presented as a bad idea.
We have an actual fight scene!
Buttercup very quickly goes back and dispatches Manboy after disabling the robot. Then we see the excess of Buttercup's anger.
Which is important to focus on, because I already told you what the fucking point of the episode was. They said it right at the beginning. Get off my ass!
A fortune teller joke that's a repeat from the fight scene, and a nice transition into Buttercup blacking out from anger.
With soundtrack and visuals that I think did a nice job of showing her descent into complete and utter rage.
Blossom calls Buttercup out on her anger, and Buttercup doesn't really see the problem until she sees Bubbles' black eye.
Which, you know, is probably how someone with uncontrollable rage problems would realize that they have uncontrollable rage problems. Only when they hurt someone close to them. So, Chillaxy then?
Okay, I don't really get why the writers decided to make Chillaxy's dialogue as obnoxious as possible.
No, really. Okay, Chillaxitude, I can let that slide. It's just the one thing. Just minorly annoying, really. Sure, whatever. Piece of inner peace you've been piecing for. It's that last part that really pushes it over the edge of making me want to bash his head in with a hammer. It's like we're supposed to be frustrated by how stupid his dialogue is, but he's supposed to be playing the mentor role in this episode. What gives?
Buttercup shows frustration,
Which you can't really blame her for.
and Blossom wants there to be a quiz.
They throw in a joke about pens.
Okay, so this whole the other girls don't get it joke doesn't actually work for me.
Especially in the case of Blossom, since Blossom's the one who explained meditation earlier, which indicates that she's probably kind of into it. But now she doesn't understand the basic concepts to the point where she thinks there's a quiz involved? I mean, it's one thing to contradict character elements, but you're contradicting character elements in the same episode that you introduced them in. That ain't good. I guess I could explain this one away, though. It's not a huge contradiction. She knows about the concept of meditation, then she could have just been reading off the pamphlet for that matter, but she's not very good at it herself due to being more high-strung leader stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's not clean, but it's an explanation.
Especially since she's so capable in the very next scene compared to Buttercup.
So in this scene, we get an explanation of Chillaxy's philosophy.
It looks like they just put fancy visuals behind him to accentuate what he was saying, but it turns out it was just a video presentation.
This does two things. The first thing it does is have the mentor explain the thing that he's teaching. The other thing it does is subvert the trope of him having visual aids that realistically shouldn't be there by explaining why the visual aids are there. It's not something that you necessarily need to expect, especially from, like, a meditation instructor, but, you know, it's one that actually works. Anyway, the whole concept is a balance between fire and water. fire being force and water being force without effort, which is kind of stupid, so they're both force. This doesn't entirely match up with the explanation we get later, or at the very least the visual representation that we get later, but let's just go with that for now.
So, Chilaxi figures out what Buttercup's problem likely is after she fails to do the Karate Kid reference, so he explains his backstory and gives her a pendant.
This apparently works.
But oh no, Man-Boy is seeking revenge on Buttercup.
This goes to show how personal Man-Boy's rivalry with Buttercup is.
And we get a gag where Man-Boy tries to symbolically chainsaw Buttercup in the face, but fails.
I do like how they're subverting a lot of action movie or revenge movie tropes here. It's good.
Buttercup's a hippie now.
Why did her character shift so radically, so quickly? Because plot convenience, I guess? Look, I get that it's a kid's show, but honestly, when you subvert so many tropes as you've been doing throughout this episode, the ones that you actually use become a lot more obvious. Anyway, Man-Boy's back, and he has a tank made of wood, a bear, and an army of stakes. Sure. Makes sense.
Buttercup tries to resolve things peacefully and gets shot in the face for her trouble.
What? Oh no, I am not doing the fake ending thing. That has been done to death. Next scene.
Buttercup's now in a trance with a tube-man Chilaxi.
Which is relevant to Chilaxi's backstory and also serves as a good visual representation of what he's teaching here. Buttercup immediately starts showing confliction between the two extremes she's been displaying. Even though we haven't really seen the other extreme for long enough for her to really be questioning it, but sure.
We then get a sequence of Tube Chilaxi slapping Buttercup while saying fire, and then dodging her while saying water.
Thus indicating the balance that he said he was teaching, but apparently he wasn't. More importantly, dodging is not a forceful act, so calling water, which is dodging again, force without effort is very misleading. Why not call it flow? That way, with the whole flow thing that they have to get right, you're making it clear that the lesson is only half learned at that point. It doesn't sound like Chilaxi just sent them on their way after teaching them half the lesson that he said he was going to teach them.
Buttercup dodges, then she punches one of the stakes. Then she gets hit like a bitch because she was distracted. So she goes to the desert place again, and Tube Chilaxi is pissed the fuck off because she was supposed to get this already. Jesus Christ.
Yet another example of making fun of the type of trope you would see in this story.
Buttercup can now stretch like a tube man.
Is this because of the water thing? Like, this is a superpower of hers now? Or is this just lazy animation? Granted, you could use the former to explain the latter, but that would mean that she uses it more often. Anyway, Man-Boy gets defeated by Tofu, and Buttercup learns a lesson about balancing her emotions.
Except she doesn't.
I really wanted to like this episode. Some of the humor that I really liked from the stayover is here. Subverting action movie tropes. I kind of like that. I always like it when people play with action movie tropes in something like this. And it's got a lot of good concepts going for it. The villain actually does better with gender identity than Donnie from Horn Sweet Horn does. But I'll be honest, the execution is just a bit messy. There were a couple places where it was a little bit too drawn out. But more importantly were the inconsistencies in the episode that just ruined it for me. I really wanted to like this one more than I did. I don't know. Maybe they can do better with something like this in the future. I really hope they don't abandon this type of thing going forward, because I think it could work if it were just written better.